Hello and welcome everybody once again to another edition of the Pick and Pop podcast. As always, I'm your host, Colby Giacubeno, joined by my co-host, Brett Roberts. Brett, how's it going, man?
Man, I'm doing all right. I was worried about your little dog,
Yeah. So, for people who aren't either following me on Twitter or, haven't been really, I've kind of gone MIA. My little dog had to get some emergency surgery. It was the first, of which I was put in a position like that. So between that and a hectic work schedule, man, I was kind of off the grid in a sense for a little bit, just trying to keep up with whatever I could. But now, thankfully everything went well with him. He's definitely, progressing each and every day. Went to the follow-up appointment yesterday. He said everything looks great. He seems great. So, I couldn't ask for a better result, but man, it wore me down for sure.
Yeah, ours suffered a little scare a few weeks back, and it was like the whole night. I didn't sleep, obviously. You probably didn't either.
Yeah,
you just lay there wondering if they're in pain and if they're okay. My little girl, she bounced back so heavy the next morning and jumping all over me that was like nothing was ever wrong. But that's scary too when you don't know what went wrong too. So like, yeah, like they're like your little kids, and like when something goes wrong with your dog, it's like your whole world ain't right.
They are, man, and people have different opinions on it. But like, especially for me and my fiance, we don't have any children. So he's our responsibility. We look at him as our child. And even when, I was brought up in households where we always had a dog and they were a part of our family. So, if something's wrong with them, it's like something wrong being wrong with the family member. So it definitely brings worry to you. With you, I did not sleep well. And on top of having to get up at 3:30 every morning, to get to work, man, it like I said, any chance that I could, I was putting my head down and trying to get some shut eye. But thankful that we're finally on the back end of that, catching up on my sleep, and also the NBA preseason is almost over. I mean, like for me, it's exciting in the beginning because it's just back around, it's fresh, there's new feelings around every team. Then the middle, people start dropping off, and now we're on the back end where it seems like games are really pointless except for the fringe players, which I guess could be exciting to watch because those guys are putting everything they have out there. But at the same time, it's just not the talent or star level that it is, of course, during the regular season. So it makes it hard to watch. And then what really, really frustrates me is, star players getting injuries, either due from, practice, which you really can't, do anything about. But if they suffer an injury in one of these preseason games, it's just so frustrating, man.
Look, I haven't watched a full preseason game since 2010. I've watched some highlights here and there, and certainly looked at some of the stats and things that have stuck out. D'Angelo Russell's been on fire, but do I read anything into this? Not much, no. Stan Van Gundy said to stop analyzing the preseason, so I've been on board with that for the last 6 years. Really haven't bothered with it much. I'll get League Pass as the preseason concludes. I'm not going to be watching any games this week either. I'm not breaking the trend. But Embiid has looked really good in the highlight clips I've watched. And, that's really the only takeaway you get from preseason anyway is highlights. The guys aren't going hard for 48 minutes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the only really takeaways that you can get are, of course, rookies, or, as we see in Los Angeles with, Luke Walton. I mean, you take away kind of little things of the offense, but even then you still can't expect, what you're seeing on the floor right now to carry over to the regular season. There's so many other schemes. Obviously they're not going to show their full set of cards, right now during the preseason. But like you said, this is a really good time for guys like Joel Embiid to get his, feet under him, literally. D'Angelo Russell to kind of, which I really like what I've seen from him, just getting settled into his new role with more freedom. And then just other players, maybe finding their niche with their teams. It's a good opportunity for teams like Chicago to kind of see how they're going to play. But man, Shane Young is always talking to me about, shortening the preseason. And I can't remember exactly how many games he said, but maybe just limit it to about, 2 weeks or something at that. Which but here's why I am with that, because I really feel for the fringe players, and I might be biased because I know and I've played against a lot of the guys currently, labeled as fringe players. So I really want to see them get their chance. But in terms of, like you said, analyzing stuff, maybe finding some content to write about, you can't use any film. You pretty much can't use any film in your pieces. No. Because it's just not worth anything. So I'm really excited. Here we are. What is it? 8-9 days till opening day for the NBA. So not too far away, but still not close enough.
I messaged my buddy Philip Rossman Reich, and I'm like, "Look, Phil, I haven't watched a preseason game since Carlos Boozer signed with the Bulls. So, what are we looking at from the Magic this year? Are they going to be any different?" And he thinks about 40 wins. I thought about 38. So no, not much different. Better, but better marginally, and it's still not in the playoffs. So this will be the longest stretch of Orlando Magic basketball without the playoffs. This will be the 5th year of it probably. But to that point, this year is going to be a lot different for me. I'm not going to be watching just the Magic. I'll probably watch 40 games, maybe even 50 or 60, but not all 82. And I want to watch some teams like Minnesota. I want to watch Milwaukee. I want to watch New York. I even want to watch Chicago. So, I'm going to be spreading my interests around the league a lot better this year and trying to cover more of the league instead of just being a solely Orlando Magic head, because I don't have to anymore,
Yeah, and I mean it'll be great. It'll be fun to kind of not expand your horizons, because it's not like you don't know anything about the other teams, but just watching another team more. Watching these young youth grow up. I mean, I completely understand what you're talking about. With me, of course, I got to watch the bulk of the Washington Wizards. But when I do get a chance to watch another team, it's cool just to see the differences and not, watch the same broadcast. What'd you say?
You're roped into a lot of Hawks games too.
Yeah. Also the Hawks. So I'll be covering them in depth as well this year. But a team maybe that, in my opinion, I don't want to watch. The Sacramento Kings. They have found their way into the headlines again, not for good reason. And this time it is because of their point guard, Ty Lawson, who is not a stranger to the headlines. Report came out that he missed the team flight to Kentucky for an exhibition game. He was late to the shoot-around in Las Vegas earlier in the week. And then missed the team's trip, and it's just it seems like Lawson was on his last leg, if you will. I mean, Houston gave him that second chance when he started messing up in Denver, and then Indiana gave him a third chance, and to maybe revitalize his career behind George Hill, which I thought was a really good fit to begin with, but obviously that didn't pan out. And now
it's disappointing. I've always really liked Ty Lawson, Colby. I really have.
Yeah. Well, then he goes.
Go back to his days in North Carolina. He was fighting really, really bad turf toe, and playing through the NCAA tournament, having some phenomenal games. And I don't know how many people know about turf toe, but it's not as a mild injury. It sounds like it is, but it's really painful. And I really rooted for him his entire career, but he's just kind of gone off the rails here at the end. And I guess that happens to some guys. They just hit a breaking point and stop caring, because that seems to be what's happened.
Yeah, well, and in my opinion, the absolute worst place that you can go is Sacramento if you have any type of problems, whether that be, finding your game, getting your game back in groove to kind of revitalize your career, or if you're having off-the-court problems, just because there's so much tension within that, that franchise. I was listening to some analysts talk the other day, and they were just talking about, imagine going to the office every single day and it being a business like the Sacramento Kings have. I mean, there's no way you're staying there. There's no way you can stay sane.
They haven't made the playoffs in 10 years.
Yeah, and just nothing's changing. You really don't know the direction of the franchise. But I'm with you, man. Especially, his last year in Denver in 14-15, averaged 15.2 points, 9.6 assists. I mean, he had a strong argument that he was, one of the best playmaking point guards in the league. I mean, it seemed like every time down, he could get Fareed a dunk, and Fareed didn't have to do much, to get the look. But he was at the peak of his game. So when he was going to Houston, of course, he got in trouble with the DUI and whatnot. But when he went to Houston, I was skeptical of it just because I didn't know how he and Harden would coexist. They're both ball-dominant guards, and it ended up, reigning true that they couldn't coexist. He ended up at the end barely playing. We only averaged 5.8 points in his 53 games there. But I don't know, man. I just don't. I don't think his career is headed in the right direction, and I think a big reason why is because of where he left or where he landed in Sacramento.
Well, see, what Denver did, they tried something, and it works really well, but not well enough with Fareed and Lawson, They're both very good young players. They're even fringe all-star types, but they're not much more than that.
Right.
And Denver wasn't going to get a hump like that, so now they've gone a completely different direction with Moutier and Jokic and Gary Harris and Barton and Nurkic, and they're just headed a different direction. They're a younger team now. Because what they were doing wasn't going to get them much more than a fringe playoff berth at best, and it didn't even do that, So, I mean that experiment. Sometimes you can run the simulation a few years ahead and see you're not going to get over the hump. So they just started to start over with Moutier, and I think that was the right decision.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think Moutier is going to be in the running for one of the most improved player in terms of being a candidate this season. But, it's like you said, it's just disappointing. I was never a big UNC guy watching him in college, but I did like Lawson. He was a fierce competitor. He's like a little, not a little, but a bulldog out there, man. He just, he had a big heart. He played with great effort. And it just stinks to see. I personally, I think he's done. I think this is it. I think he either finishes out this season somehow, or he doesn't, and he just kind of tails off. Maybe he plays in the D League for a couple years. He goes overseas for that route. But I think his days in the NBA are limited or over.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the next stop being hanging out with Marbury in China.
Yeah, I mean, that might be his best bet if he's a guy who is trying to cash out financially.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't blame him. And he would go over there and dominate. I mean, that. But it's just hard to see a talent like that kind of go to waste. And you honestly wonder if he needs some professional help, just if he's dealing with something, because, man, it's just disappointing. And I hope Ty can land back on his feet and he can kind of get this point of his life straightened out and can bounce back and become, one of the – I mean, he could be a very solid point guard, a backup option somewhere, for a championship caliber team if he stays, sane, if he stops losing his mind when he's off the court. On the court, he really doesn't have a problem with that. But, I just don't think it's a good mix in Sacramento for him. But, one guy, let's get off the negative note. And a guy who's really been seeming to look refreshed in his new destination is Brandon Jennings for the Knicks. There's so much question with Rose and his trial, how long it's going to take, what it's going to be the result, how will the NBA act. Now, a ton of different reports have surfaced. I don't know if you want to, but we're not really going to cover them because there's just so many in every direction. But Jennings is taking advantage of his playing time right now.
Yeah, Jennings has always been a guy he's got all the offensive talent needed to run a team, and he can score. But he shoots a low field goal percentage. He takes bad shots. He gets inconsistent. He has trouble keeping his head in the game. And this is a guy who scored 50 points his rookie season. He can put the ball in the hoop. But can he get ever to that level that was originally projected when this guy spent a year overseas, came in as a lottery pick, was projected to be one of the best players in this draft, and since that point has been pretty average, all things said. He has his big games and his big nights. But could he finally do that for a whole season in New York? Maybe. If he does, he'll win Most Improved probably,
Well, I'll tell you what. I think he'll fit in well there. If Rose can come back, play a decent amount of games, stay healthy. The issue for this Knicks team is depth, clearly. Coming off the bench, really, you really just have Brandon Jennings as a real threat, as a proven threat. As they got a lot of young guys that they could come out and turn heads. But my insight for Brandon Jennings is I think he's a good fit for this Knicks team as a backup because he brings that energy to the floor that they need for that reserve lineup. Now you have Joakim Noah in the starting lineup that kind of provides that energy and builds that culture of confidence just as soon as he walks in. I think Jennings could do that, and I think the young guys could feed off that really well. I mean, it'll bring confidence. Now, when things start going down the wrong road, it'll be interesting to see how he reacts. But so far, man, so good. He's getting out on the break. He's not. Here's the thing: he's not putting up huge numbers, but he's having loud games. The other day he scored. I can't think. I'm gonna pull up his stats now, but he had a game where it seemed like he had 20 points, and he finished. It was against the Wizards. I should have known that, but it seemed like he had 20 points. He only finished with 11, but it was just all his shots were big shots. You remembered them, and then of course he celebrates afterwards, which can get on some people's nerves. But I think this Knicks team needs that.
The Knicks are a team I'll be watching. I have to admit it's mostly because of Porzingis. But I like a lot of the players on their team. I've always liked Noah. I've always liked Courtney Lee. I don't know how to feel about Derrick Rose, and I'm just going to reserve judgment on the whole thing until more's known. I don't like it. I don't. And I don't think a lot of fans do. But on the on-court aspect, he's clearly declined a ton as a player. He's never going to be the guy he was. But he can still be a useful NBA guard. It's kind of like it poses the same question I remember when Brandon Roy was trying to come back, where you can get quality play from a guy, but how much of it and how many games a season is really becomes the question when you're talking about Derrick Rose. Are you getting 50 games out of him, 70?
Yeah,
some playoffs. You don't really know.
Yeah, that's the big question with it, and I think that the good thing is Jennings is getting his run in now with the starters. Not that it would be a different story if Rose was playing and there was no off the court issues, but I think this definitely cannot hurt the team that Jennings is getting so much run with the starting five or the starters in general. I mean, him and Porzingis seem to have a good connection. I mean, how can you not if you're a point guard and you're playing with a guy with skills like that and as big as he is? But I mean, with any team, it takes time for chemistry to form. And I think I just think Jennings brings that swagger to this Knicks team, and that's going to ignite the Garden every night that he's doing his thing. And then on top with Noah, like I said, he's a high-energy player, a guy that brings confidence to the group as a whole. I'm really interested to see what this Knicks team does. I'm a Carmelo Anthony guy. I think a lot of people know that. I'm interested. He's finally got a respectable lineup around him. It's not the lineup that some people are making it out to be, of course, but I mean it's better than what he's been working with the past few years. So Brandon Jennings, definitely somebody to keep an eye on as we go forward here, especially if Rose can't begin the season. I don't even know, say if he can begin, play in the opener. Who knows? Who knows if he's the starter? I mean, he's missed he's missed every preseason game. So maybe Hornacek goes with Jennings from the get go, and then eases Rose into the starting position. I think we both believe that that's the best way to go. I think if you can have Jennings coming off the bench, it's better off for the team. I mean, do you agree?
It depends. It depends on what you're getting from Jennings. If he's really engaged, he can be better than Rose.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I think he can be better than Rose, but I think having that type of weapon come off the bench with a lineup that they're playing with all those young guys and not even the young guys, say like a Lance Thomas, Kyle O'Quinn, guys that are limited in what they can do. I think having a playmaker like Jennings with that confidence coming off the bench, I mean, I think that would be better than Rose not starting, because I think Rose is the type of guy where he's not starting, it plays with his mind. And maybe his play kind of follows that. But, we'll see. We'll see. I think, I
might see something from Kyle O'Quinn this year. Kyle O'Quinn's a really good high post passer, and Hornacek's going to know how to get something out of that. The Magic really got – every game there'd be at least one or two really nice Kyle O'Quinn passes from the high post.
Yeah, I respect Kyle O'Quinn's game. The only thing is
he's a bit of a head case.
A head case. I think consistency is another thing, an issue with him. I've watched a few of their games. I don't know why he continues to shoot so many threes. Just because, he's got a nice shot.
It's Al Harrington's fault, honestly.
Al
Harrington guided him as a young player in a very negative way. He told him, and I quote, "Get a shot up for every minute you're on the court."
Good God. Okay, well that explains it. Al Harrington's still having an impact in the league today, and I'm not
from the same area. Apparently, they grew up in the same area.
Okay. I wasn't.
And he listened to Al Harrington as gospel, and so ever since then, if you look at Kyle O'Quinn's minutes, he'll play 12 minutes and shoot 14 shots.
Yeah, that's just not needed. But if he can definitely find his way. I just think Jennings could run that show pretty well with the reserves and supply that confidence that would be needed. So now we kind of moving on. If you people haven't realized yet, we're just kind of whipping through whatever's in the NBA airways going on today. And the other headline that kind of made it big was a trade that went down between the Chicago Bulls and the Milwaukee Bucks. And kind of a head scratcher from a little bit of, from some point of view. And then if you look at it a different way, you kind of understand it. The Bulls will be receiving the point guard Michael Carter-Williams, and the Bucks get wing Tony Snell. Brett, what are your takeaways from it immediately?
Not a lot. I don't think this is a real big impactful trade. The Bucks get a 3-point shooter that hits at a 35% clip. That's useful to some degree. And Michael Carter-Williams can certainly move an offense, but I'm not sure that he's a starting caliber NBA point guard even after winning Rookie of the Year. It's not a move that's going to alter the landscape of the NBA. No one expects that. The Bulls, I don't know what they're doing. They have no shooters on their roster, and then they trade a decent one for another guy that can't shoot. So, the Bulls are in for a painful learning experience about what this NBA is not anymore, and it's not a take it to the basket every play kind of league.
Yeah,
it's good. They're not going to be a good basketball team. They're not.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have their problems. When I saw the trade, I had to question if it was real, because I didn't understand it from Chicago's perspective. Now, not in the sense that why would you trade Tony Snell? I think the feeling behind Tony Snell in Chicago is, he came in with unfair pressure in the sense that everybody thought he was going to be kind of Jimmy Butler. Yeah, Lil Dang, Jimmy Butler, Junior. And I don't know if he was ever really that caliber player. But they just had such high expectations for him, and obviously he never really panned out. But so you go and get a guy like Michael Carter-Williams, who everyone knows cannot shoot the ball for anything, and
right.
I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. Everybody knows the Bulls' weakness, like you said, is 3-point shooting, and now you go out and get one of the worst 3-point shooters in the league.
They're not going to be a good team.
I don't know, man.
They shot 15% from three last year.
Yeah, and that's the other funny thing is people will just take away his playoff stat of him shooting 50% from beyond the arc.
6 games.
Yeah, and
that's small sample size theater. How many players have a stretch of games that don't reflect at all what their regular season was about?
No, and it's funny because be reading certain articles or what have you, and I guess the Bulls optimists or whatever, which the guys who cover the team on a daily basis and run the big blogs, they know exactly what they're talking about. But you can tell the people who really who aren't in touch with what's going on when they rely on that stat. It's it's baffling to me, but that is what it is. But like I said, I think we already talked about this on the pod, man. It's just going to come down between Mirotic and McDermott. Can they stretch the floor at all? And even at that, I don't think those two guys are going to be able to do anything. And I just don't know what Michael Carter-Williams brings. I don't know what he – now, I'm going to admit I haven't been an avid, MCW watcher. But, I mean, I know he had a solid year when he won Rookie of the Year. He was in Philadelphia. The ball was in his hands every possession. They expected him to do everything. But other than that, it's not like for me as an outsider, the Bulls get them like, oh, okay, well, they went from being a team kind of fighting for a last playoff spot to maybe they get the 7, possibly the 6. This trade didn't do any of that for me.
Right. No, it doesn't. So,
I mean, that was a question. I mean, I'm kind of hoping more trades go down just because they're always interesting. And, you always like to see a kind of change of display on the teams. But, we'll have plenty of that. I still don't believe that Dwayne Wade's a Chicago Bulls player. I still think he'll suit up for the Heat in the regular season because I'm just in denial. But obviously that will all come to an end in the regular season when, like you said, once I make my league pass purchase, turn on a Bulls game, I'll have to sit there and suffer through it. But
yeah.
So and then moving on to another guy like Jennings who is having a solid preseason showing. And you mentioned him earlier in the podcast, Joel Embiid. This is a guy who struggled with the foot injury for the first 2 years of his career. Never stepped on an NBA floor. Everybody really didn't know what he could be, and now he stepped on. And man, I think this guy can be special.
He's got all the tools.
I mean, the thing that alarmed me, I didn't watch any of his first games per se, but they played the Wizards twice. And the one thing that really caught my eye was when he stepped on the floor, even for the tip-off against Gortat. And he just made Gortat look small. And Gortat, for people who don't know, I mean, he's
big.
He's a big man. Yeah, he's a big dude. But
he's a legit 7-footer.
Yeah, legit 7 foot, and he is by no means skinny. And
right.
You see Embiid, you see his size, and then you combine that with his athleticism and his footwork, his ability to run up and down the floor is what's really shocked me. He's going to give mismatch problems night in and night out.
Yeah, he's going to be a monster. I don't know how long it'll take because of the minutes restrictions. We see Embiid become a total monster, but he's perennial all-star talent if he stays healthy. That's right. The one all-size line that everybody knows, and we don't want to say it because we just want to enjoy it for what it is right now. You don't want to watch a guy and be crossing your fingers every time he takes it to the basket. That's not the way you watch NBA basketball. So we'll just hope that Embiid stays healthy.
Yeah, I really hope so, man. Not only because he's a great player, but for that city. I mean, I think it's well known now that Ben Simmons and his injury. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, and yeah, I was really, really anxious to see him and Embiid. I mean, now that we can see what Embiid can do, I can only imagine the high screen and rolls with Embiid popping to the 3-point line and Simmons given the opportunity to look to attack off those screens. Just the amount of options that you have. I mean, you got Covington in the corner for a 3, Stauskas when he feels like being good because it seems like he doesn't. I don't know. Stauskas frustrates me, but there's just so many things that could happen with that. That now that Simmons is injured, the city of Philadelphia just keeps taking punches, man.
Mm-hmm. No, but the process, I mean, it did pay its dividends because you look at this team like Philly that went through this process, and they come out with Embiid and Simmons and Noel, and Orlando, which tried to toe the line of trying to be relevant and build towards something and build a team, and came away with nothing really. Oladipo's gone, Tobias Harris is gone, Elfrid Payton's still there. So Philly rolled the dice big time and hit the lottery with Embiid, and it's those franchise players. So if he stays healthy, they got one. And Simmons could be 2. So if you have 2 of them, and then you count Noel as one of the best defensive players in the league, I'd say that Hinkie did a good job. I criticized Hinkie because I thought man, that's really not fair to make your fans watch a team of D-leaguers, you know? But
Yeah.
look at what it produced.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, the Sixers did tanking the best way possible, and I think we all see that now. There's no other way that you can get. You have these teams that are kind of on the line of like tanking. They want a spot, but if you really need to turn your franchise around, you need to go all in. And yes, that might mean 2-3 years of just absolutely horrible basketball, which I don't even know what the NBA would allow anymore. But if you had to ask for a blueprint of tanking and kind of turning something around, I think Hinkie, his plan, trust the process. It worked out. And I saw a tweet the other day that said, "Can you imagine if they took Porzingis?" I mean, I don't even want to. And I just got Xbox One and 2K and did a fantasy draft, and I have Porzingis and Embiid in my front court. And I'll tell you what, nobody gets rebounds. Nobody gets more rebounds than them, man. I mean, they just dominate. Now I'm not gonna spurt off on my 2K rant, but that's a scary thought to think that they could have had that duo.
That's a nasty front court.
Yeah. I mean, talk about youth and length and skill and just the epitome of what the center position is becoming in the NBA. It's amazing, man. It's amazing how big these guys are and how they're adjusting to it. So many moving parts going on in this new NBA game. It's really it's really amazing to watch how these guys do it.
I still contrast a lot, in terms of watching old games far more frequently than most people. And I watch the new games, and I don't lament that the old NBA is gone. I really like what the league's become too. It's a trial in different styles, as time passes. And certainly the game's different than it was when I watched mass amounts of games in 1995, We didn't have League Pass. There was no League Pass, We were watching whatever NBC gave us every Sunday.
Yep, and getting the rest just off little highlight clips on SportsCenter or whatever, you really did.
Ahmad Rashad show, inside stuff, getting all the highlights off that. And it was different. There was no Twitter. You Saturday morning, you tuned in at 11 o'clock on NBC to see the week's highlights,
Yeah.
So the NBA has certainly grown in popularity, and the internet has grown everything in popularity, it seems like. It's made the lines of communication so much more open. So now when a guy like Embiid is having a breakout preseason coming off an injury, we all know about it.
Yeah, and going back to what you said, certainly a more simpler time, kind of a time that I've always said that I wish I would have grew up in, in late teens, early 20s. But like you said, it has transformed, and it's transformed fast. It's not like this has been a slow process. It's every year something new, a change to the game, whether it be rules, position philosophies, anything, it's constantly changing. So definitely something to watch out for, these athletic centers. Really quick, as like I said, we're just going through kind of some headlines, touching on, getting our opinions. Another move that finally went down, and that I didn't really understand what took so long after seeing the numbers. J.R. Smith signs with the Cavs. I guess, what did you think of it? And did you really think that he would land elsewhere, I guess?
No, I didn't. And I was really making me mad that the Cavs wouldn't just pay him, because they paid Tristan Thompson. And I don't like J.R. Smith at all. Let me make that clear. I don't like his game. I don't like his shot. I think he's trash. But he's still a better player than Tristan Thompson.
Yeah.
And that's not even a hot take. He just scores more and does more things than Tristan Thompson's at 9 rebounds a game, So, if you're going to pay Tristan Thompson that kind of money and not pay J.R. Smith, to me that makes 0 sense.
Yeah, and what made me confused about it was he got his number. Now, if they would have settled on maybe a 12 million a year, then I could realize, well, I guess the Cavs were really negotiating to cut some money off that contract. But they arrived exactly what JR wanted.
He just won the title. Why don't you just pay the guy and make it a non-issue? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, granted, there's a lot of different things that go into that with the luxury cap, the cap hit, blah blah blah. But
yeah.
We've already seen David Griffin is not a penny pincher. He will go out of his way to pay players in order for a championship. And as the days it was weird because the day he signed, I was just getting notifications from apps, and I don't know how credible they could be, but it said that other teams were about to start pursuing him, and I don't understand why you would. I was having this conversation again with Shane Young, and I just think if he were to go anywhere else that wasn't under power of LeBron, he wouldn't pan out. He would be a disaster, I just think, because of the way he plays. LeBron keeps him in check. And I think if he were to – because, there was something about maybe which doesn't make any sense, but the Celtics were thinking about him, which, I could see that they needed shooting. But, number one, they have 55 guys on the roster anyway. So, how – to make room for him seemed,
well, they
very
already have guards. What would they do, just not play Marcus Smart or something?
Exactly.
Why would you do that?
Right. But, even if he goes to another top team in either the East or the West, I still don't see him being as successful as he does after LeBron. I just think, in a way, it's like Daddy LeBron. Like, LeBron looks after him. And he has. You have to admit, JR has straightened up significantly since going to Cleveland. You've heard zero off-the-court issues. He just got married, for what that's worth. It shows that he's in a commitment. And, he's taking on more responsibility. So, you got to respect the guy for that. But I just don't think, anywhere else he goes down the drain because we've seen this now from a lot of guys. If you're in that circle with LeBron, and obviously he is, he's under Clutch Sports too, it's you don't get out of that circle. LeBron's going to take care of you.
Nick Young needs to look at what's worked for J.R. Smith and do it for himself.
Oh, yeah. Even if that guy has a hope anywhere, that's another guy I just completely stay away from. That's another guy.
I really don't like teammates like that where you throw them the ball and it's anyone's guess what's going to happen to it next,
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I was asked the other day, what was your opinion of the Nick Young days in Washington? And I said they were frustrating. He plays the same. He played the similar style of where kind of street ball, just throw up whatever you want, just play around, not take it serious. But he wasn't as much of a distraction off the court as of yet. And now it just seems like, I don't know if you ever watch any of his stuff in it's just the post game. But it seems like he takes every question as a joke, which in a way they're funny. They're funny responses. But yeah. And then it's like, man, just like take it serious for 1 second.
Very immature, and a lot of these guys are very immature. That's the thing I noticed most when I first started covering games 6-7 years ago, because I was not a young guy. I was 28, and these guys are 20, 19. And they act like high schoolers, Colby. They act just like kids that you saw in high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and in a way,
they're forced to function as adults, and they're not adults really yet. They're not there yet.
Right, and it's not like you're making a point to bash them, because you'd be one of the first guys to step up and say, if I was a 20-year-old and had that type of money, that type of fame, I'd probably act the same way, if not worse. But
it's hard. It'd be really, really hard to process that as an.
Exactly. I just think Nick Young acting the way he's acting, and for that team, it's not good. For the Lakers, they have so many young guys who are just trying to soak up anything. Ironically, obviously everybody knows what D'Angelo Russell did, last year with the whole phone video on Nick Young, blah, blah, blah. But and supposedly that's squash, but still, D'Angelo Russell's around that every day. So
it's not squash. I saw a simple Vine where he was trying to give him 5, and Nick Young just blew him off, didn't even look at him.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about too. I guess I just didn't.
That was a very telling 7 seconds.
Yeah. Well, it's that to me. That's just a frustrating process. That's a guy that you need to get out of there. Now, the only thing is, there's really no market for him because nobody wants him. Nobody wants him.
No, he's not a good player. But J.R. Smith early in his career took so many bad shots under George Karl that it just made you cringe. There were Steph Curry shots that didn't go in, basically.
Oh yeah.
So, like, if Nick Young could curb some of that crap, get his shot selection cleaned up a little bit, play some defense, like, he needs to pick up some of these finer points or he's not going to have a long NBA career. He's going to fizzle out.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's only a matter of time if he does that. Like you said, I think he could have a very easy, long career. He just straightens out. He's a shooter. I mean, granted, he takes some difficult shots, but he does make them. He does make the majority of them. You know, he's not on a Jamal Crawford level at all, but in terms of, you know, being a guy who can score off the bench, he could do something like that. I mean, he could be somewhere in that vicinity, and we see what Jamal Crawford's doing. You know, if he were to be a free agent, you know, we saw Philly about to offer him the bank this year, and obviously he got the same amount from the Clippers. But there's places for a guy like that in the NBA, and you know, if Nick Young can finally, which I don't think he just can't. But if he did mature somehow and see that, I think he could really benefit from it. But hey, man, I mean, are there anything else? Anything you see? You know, you've either seen in the headlines, or I know you haven't watched a whole bunch of preseason, but anything that you did from your short stints? Anything that you kind of wanted to cover?
I've seen a lot of takeaways that Chris Dunn's nowhere near ready.
Really?
Yeah, he's 22 years old, but he has every bit of rookie point guard in him.
Huh. I mean, well, I'll be honest with you. I haven't really watched a whole lot of Timberwolves preseason, but it was weird that you mentioned that because I just tweeted out before this show that it's really confusing that why people are you know, claiming that he's going to be the rookie of the year. And in my opinion, it wasn't because, you know, he's not that good. I think he's definitely that caliber of player, but it's just the way that they use the votes. I mean, I think it's the past 10 years, and that's taking the short picture, the small picture of it, but it's always what rookies' stats in terms of points, assists, rebounds add up as the highest. That's who gets rookie of the year. And I just don't think, you know, right, with all the other players, you know, you got Towns, you got Levine, you got Wiggins, you got so many other players that are going to be putting the ball in the hole and having, you know, the ball in their hands. I just don't think he's going to be in that category. But I'm surprised. Have you been able to watch him at all?
No, I've just seen some people saying that he's had periods of lots of turnovers and just a lot of rookie mistakes. You know, stretches of not looking like an NBA player yet. And I mean, those are all things I expect from rookie point guards. So to me, it's par for the course. Yeah,
I think, and especially, you know, after his summer league, which, you know, wasn't that long anyway because of the concussion, you know, just a couple of games, but he showed a lot of upside in those few games that he did play in. So I think that may play into it, just expectation wise of what we think he's going to do. But, you know, I think once, you know, he continues to get comfortable with Tibbs, gets his feet under him, adjusts to the NBA pace. I mean, in my opinion, he's playing the hardest position in the game right now. Not only from the responsibility standpoint on offense, but, you know, just bringing it defensively every night against, you know, guys with the likes of Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, John Wall, Dame Lillard, Kyrie. I mean, he's going to have his hands full.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, as you just said Kyrie, and then I realized I ranked Kyrie Irving ahead of him, or Kyle Lowry ahead of him in the point guard rankings I did. I'm standing by that, though.
Yeah, hey, Cleveland fans are going to be coming for your head. I mean, if I've seen if Kyrie isn't, you know, it's crazy. If Kyrie isn't 3 or 4, I saw something on Twitter that
I didn't have Wall in there. It was Lowry. Number 4 was Dame Lillard. 3 was Chris Paul. 2 was Steph Curry, and number 1 was Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I mean, the big argument, I think it goes through Twitter, which I don't even understand why it's an argument, is Kyrie and Chris Paul. 2 completely different players, but in my mind, Chris Paul is just so much better than Kyrie. It's not even a discussion. And then they try to bring Damian Lillard into it. I mean, Damian Lillard's a great player. people think I bash him because I always put Wall in front of him. Don't get me wrong. Like, Damian Lillard is one of the best players in the NBA as a whole. I just don't think
he's better than Trump.
Okay. We like scoring wise, yes, I would agree to that. But in terms of getting everything,
leadership, in terms of leadership, man, you know
what Lillard's better than Wall leadership wise.
Yeah,
I agree with that as well. But in terms of making
that's huge for me. Like when you're talking about a team that's going to be like Portland or Washington, where you're just on the cusp of the playoffs. Having the right leader is the difference between being there like Portland was and not like Washington was.
True. I mean, for granted, and I know you know this already, but injuries played a role last year. I
get that.
I think if Wall and Beal could finally play a season where they're both playing 70-plus games, I think it.
Let me tell you something, Colby. I learned from a decade of fantasy basketball. Injury-prone players stay injury-prone. They don't magically heal.
Yep, and that's the curse that DC fans hope that Beal can break. We can see. We'll wait and see, but you know, I wish the Wizards would take an off season to just surround Wall with shooters. I think he would jump up in people's minds in terms of point guard standings because the guy can work with anybody. You can put anybody on the floor with him, and he will make them a better player. That's why that's why I respect him so much and respect his game. Yes, I think there are leaps and bounds that he has to make leadership wise. Now he has made some progress, but you know, like you said, Damian Lillard's a guy who has so much confidence that it bleeds over into his other players, and that's what good leaders do, you know. So that's something that, you know, Wall can kind of take out of Lillard's strengths and try to put it into his game. But
these mediocre teams need their stars to go from being stars to superstars, and that's what Lillard did. But Wall really hasn't done that.
No, and that's the hard thing about it. I mean, people expect every team to have a superstar, and that's not how it works. That's why the superstars are known for being superstars. They're not everywhere you look.
Lillard is he's a notch ahead of Wall for me. And I put Lowry ahead of Wall too. Lowry's overall impact on the game is just tremendous, you know? And I get the argument that he didn't succeed in the playoffs, but people say that about Chris Paul too. So let's look at things holistically, you know? Let's not highlight the playoff performance and say you can't put a guy at number 5 because he had a bad year in the playoffs. I'm not buying into that narrative.
No, and I'm going to sit back and hopefully everything stays intact for the Wizards this year. Obviously, already got off on the wrong foot with Mahinmi, having to get meniscus surgery. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, probably 7 just to be safe. But I'm going to be interested to check back in with you after the season starts, and Wall gets in this Scotty Brooks offense and more in a defensive mentality because the guy's been – I know you probably haven't caught any games. Not a lot of people watch Wizards games, but Wall has been elite defensively so far. I mean, it's scary. It's scary how many times he's taking the ball away from just everyone on the floor. So I'm anxious.
Gotta watch the Polish Hammer.
Polish Hammer, Gortat, one of my favorite big men in the league that, you know, people don't respect, and that is one of the most efficient players that we have in the NBA. And I'm not afraid to say that because, you know, his numbers don't lie. But what else you got? You got anything else? Or you wrapping up?
Let's see. Anything else? No, let's wrap it up here. We got 50 minutes here, and I think without delving into the deep forest of wandering topics, we'll just wrap it up here.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, you know, and like I said, we are only, you know, a little over a week away from the regular season. So, you know, if we don't get another pod in before that, you know, maybe we get one in after the first couple of days of the season, get some takeaways.
Colby, I'm trying to have my 30-hour marathon pod.
What are you talking about? Podding for 30 hours?
30 hours straight on Google Hangout before the season starts, leading into the.
I don't.
I can do it. I got like Duncan and then like Snotty Drippin and Adam all lined up for the early morning hours. I can fill out 30 hours of consecutive podcasting.
Hey, I will be more than happy to listen to every one of them. Trust me. And if you need me to be a part of one, I will. But
As
sir,
many as possible. I have to have somebody for every team. So.
but I will not be participating in the production of that stuff. I will be sleeping as much as I can. But no, man, like I didn't even know you were doing that. That sounds awesome. And if you can if you can get that done, even more power to you. Yeah.
It's in the works. It's all very tentative at this point, but I really want to.
Good. Well, I'll definitely be looking for it. But like I said, we will definitely get together for another episode. Maybe a few days after the regular season begins, kind of get some takeaways. Some things that we saw. But it was a good talk today. Like I said, we didn't really even have a schedule, guys. Brett messaged me, wanted to do a podcast. There's not many things really going around in the headlines right now, so we were just kind of talking NBA talk. As always, we hope you enjoyed it. If you could follow us on Twitter, you can find Brett at 33Trigger. You can find me at Colby Giacubeno. Give us a follow. Let's talk some hoops. Brett, do you have anything coming out writing wise in the next coming days, or something that you just released that you want to tell the people go check out?
I might push out my my Maddox division previews for the NBA. It depends on how much effort I put into them. So if those are top notch, you'll see them. If they're not, they won't.
All right, yeah, cool. And then for me, I just did not a very big piece, but on D'Angelo Russell, how I think it's his time for Los Angeles. You can find that at hoopscritic.com. I did the Washington Wizards preview for today's Fast Break, and then I'm also going to be joining in on the train of doing random predictions, and I'll have that for Hoops Habit coming up in the next few days. So be on the lookout for that. Guys, as always, thank you very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions for the podcast, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me or Brett and let us know what you think or what could be better or what questions you want us to, go after in the next show. So for Brett Roberts, I'm Colby Giacubeno. Thank you very much, guys.